Alrighty, welcome everybody to the Bad Filipino podcast. It is your host. I'm your host, Myki Angeline, and I'm excited for this episode because not only is it my really good friend, and I don't know, do I say colleague? What do I say? Because I'm your
Homegirl.
Lauren, because we're going to talk about
Kapwa.
all the things Filipino, Asian, and all the things mental health because it's May, which is the Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. So, of course, I'm like, let's talk about this stuff because this is really important. It can get heavy, it's going to get real, but we're still going to have fun. So, I welcome you to the Bad Filipino podcast, Lauren.
Hello. That's a really cool intro. I'm like, look at all
I'm
these
like,
people she
ah!
interviewed.
Yeah,
Look at all
yeah.
these
So,
people she
okay,
interviewed, and little old me.
little old you, but powerful you. So,
Mm,
let everyone know who you are and what we'll be talking about, focusing on today.
yeah. My name is Lauren Torres Funiestas. I'm calling in from Lichjon Territory, also known as Benicia, California. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist by trade, which is how I make my money. I'm the owner of Keona Defense Shop. And I like to think of myself as a babaylan in training. And for those of you who don't know the term babaylan is kind of like the indigenous Filipino healer, spiritual leader, teacher, educator. So I'm really kind of stepping into that right now. I was working for 14 years in community mental health within the nonprofit and government agency world. And I'm actually healing from that. I'm healing from the burnout of that. I'm healing from the proximity of trauma, vicarious trauma, other people's trauma, which we'll talk about later on. And yeah, so I'm here just to kind of like give out some information about anxiety, about what people might be experiencing in the wake of all the violence that's happening in our communities, that continues to happen, the historical violence, what's going on now in the world, and to also kind of like maybe just give people a little hope that like you can heal yourself and that you can experience joy and calm. It just takes a little bit of intention and a little strategizing.
Agreed. And no,
Yeah.
you're correct because it seems we can never seem to get a break. And by we, I'm referring to women of color, and for me, queer women of color. I mean, right now,
Yes.
the very fabric of Roe versus Wade is threatened, which, should it go the way that conservatives on the bench want it to go, and a small but mighty amount of people in the US, it'll unravel things not just abortion rights, but gay marriage is threatened, mixed marriage is threatened. It just feels like there are certain folks that are trying to take away what it's taken us hundreds of years to get to. So
Mm.
on top of that, our community is dealing with violence against Asians and especially the elder. I mean, so it was probably 3 weeks ago I saw, because I get a lot of the news. Remember, I was talking about one off camera that popped up on my phone.
Hmm.
And some idiot Howley, yeah, that's what we're going to call him, in Hawaii, was seen on camera setting an elderly Asian man on fire as he was walking down the street.
Mm.
Yeah. Or like, oh, by either it was like by a mall or a strip mall or something, because you see he's just walking and the man's behind him trying to light him on fire, his
Mm.
coat.
Yeah.
Why? Why? Right?
Hmm.
And it just gets me so riled up. And that's why, and for those that don't know, when I was mentioning about you and I working together, because I'm an ambassador of Keona's shop, because you
Hmm.
have these stylish, discreet weapons
Yeah.
that are for women because they're smaller, and
We
it's
can't
that
call them weapons though.
that's right. Okay,
We call
so
them accessories so that I can
accessories.
actually sell them.
There
Because
it
I
is.
don't know, people have a problem with women holding little knives and stun guns, so I have to change the whole name from a weapon to an
They have
accessory
problems with
from.
women standing up for ourselves. Period.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
my social media is, we were just talking about how you're shadow banned for some of the opinions and the views that you have. I also get shadow banned for just, showing my products and teaching people. But I sell women's defense accessories, so stun guns, pocket knives, pepper spray, little things that you can put on your keychain that you can carry with you whenever you go out. And I go to pop-ups throughout the Bay Area. And it's really interesting talking to people because being shout out, feeling like you're being shout out banned on Instagram, and then going into the community and having people come up to my table and be like, yes, we need this. Thank you for doing this. Like they recognize that there is a threat to our safety, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things I wanted to touch on was, when we talk about trauma, trauma in the body, like just what you described, seeing, just even seeing something that terrible, and you're not in the situation, you're just watching it from like your screen. And even that, hearing you tell me the story of that is traumatic. So trauma is literally like the threat or knowledge of a threat happening to somebody's life or their safety. And so when we have a threat or we experience a threat, what happens to our bodies? Our bodies either will tense up or will want to run away, right? Um, and what we don't realize is that doesn't just stay there for that moment that you experienced it. It actually carries on with you throughout your life unless you deal with it, or like you heal it out of your body, talk about it. And those are different ways of doing it. And like just like what you're saying right now, you said like it makes you heated, makes you riled up, gets you riled up. And imagine what that does for you, to your body too, right?
Oh, yeah, to my
What
body, to my health.
physiological.
We all
Mm-hmm.
deal with it in different ways. I mean, I have a strong personality. Huh, duh. A type, Leo, what's up? But it doesn't mean I
Mm-hmm.
don't experience the trauma. I just handle it different. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything from being emotionally upset to psychologically upset and then physically, because now you find you have to you have to mindfully relax your shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
unclench your jaw, like soften your face, because these are all the things that happen when you get tensed up through anxiety. For
Yes.
some folks, it's a shutdown and it's a
Yes.
can't be around the world, and very you feel unsafe and you feel like you need to go somewhere but you don't know where to go. So it's like a fight or flight
Exactly.
sort of feeling. And so okay, so before we get into a little bit more on that, what inspired you to become a mental health therapist?
Um. So
I mean, was that
I
always
originally
your goal, or did you sort of work
no.
towards that?
I originally my I have my bachelor's in criminal justice. So I originally wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be like a public defender. I wanted to like, go avenge people and be like the right side of the law. And then I started working for the Superior Court within the case management capacity, and I realized that that's not what lawyers did. They actually didn't go out and save people. And then working in the Superior Court, I worked with San Francisco's Behavioral Health Court. So I was working with folks who were in and out of both the criminal justice system and the mental health system. My job was to help get them out of jail so they could go to treatment versus being in jail, right? And so I was working with a lot of folks up until I left 3 months ago. I actually just left community mental health to start my own private practice. Up until then, I was working with folks who had severe like psychosis and mood disorders. So these are folks who are going in and out of the hospital. These are folks who are, wandering the streets. These are folks who, would get arrested because they had nowhere else to go, or get arrested because they were having like acutely psychotic symptoms. And so it was very taxing on my body. And I decided I wanted to do that because I had a client who asked me what it was like to fall in love, right? And this was somebody who was 18 years old, was hearing, had disorganized thoughts, couldn't shower, but he was still there, like asking about love. And it reminded me, like, no matter what we go through, that we're still human, right? And everybody's humanity should be seen, especially those who are coming in and out of the system, because these systems aren't built to like really heal us. They're built to like continue to oppress us, right? And
Agreed.
continue to do, yeah.
And
And
because you've
so
seen it from the inside out.
yeah, I actually the last year of the pandemic, I was working 60 plus hours at the jail.
Ooh,
So not just I would do my day job and then I would go work at the jail because I felt like a call to like help, like a call to work, like to do what I needed to do, use my skills during the pandemic. And so in my head, I thought, oh, let me go work in the jails because I know how to do that. Like I'm just used to it. But I didn't realize was I was exposing to myself to a lot of like, you don't ever, like, I truly believe that we don't need jails. Like I've been in jails, I've been in there overnight. It's not what we think it is. It's not doing what we think it needs to be doing, it's just perpetuating a lot more trauma, a lot more violence, and a lot more like people who need some help, right? And so I left that, and I started my own private practice, and now I work solely with women who are processing and healing from sexual trauma, emotional neglect, and child abuse. Because I figure I couldn't stop a lot of people. I saw the tail end of that in jail, like the severe effects of what it meant to be emotionally neglected, sexually assaulted, and abused as children. I saw the adults, and so I moved backwards and want help before that happens. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
trajectory happens before it gets worse. Um, and for what I'm working with now is, a lot of women who are struggling with like their identities, struggling with feeling inside their body because the impact of violence, the impact of sexual violence and trauma. You said freeze or flight, like our spirits literally freeze inside our bodies or they leave our bodies because the impact of violence on our bodies is so severe that in order for us to survive, we kind of have to leave it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so that's why when we tense up, people will say, I can't, they don't notice when they're tense. They don't notice they stopped breathing. They don't notice that their jaw, right?
It's
And so
clenched.
that's
Yeah.
why, yeah, that's why when you said that, like mindfulness of what's going on in our bodies is really important. Like, so that when you're having a panic attack, do you know you're having it because your heart is beating and you're having trouble breathing, right?
Right.
Or you know
And you
you're
almost
feeling
feel on the
heavy.
verge of blacking out.
Because yeah, and that can happen. Some people do dissociate to that point where they can't feel their heart beating, so they black out. I have clients I work with who, you know, the level of dissociation exists on a spectrum. It could be from just like mindlessly scrolling on your phone to manage your anxiety or just mindlessly scrolling, or you're literally blacking out as you're like walking down the street and you turn your ankle because you're not paying attention, right?
Yeah, and
Hmm.
as someone who's been a martial artist, and you are too, I've been in and out of it since I was 6. I'm so conditioned to take abuse,
Yeah.
be it
Oh.
physical or emotional, and because I mean, transparency, I grew up in abuse. I grew up being physically and sexually assaulted,
Mm.
and my coping was not only becoming physically strong to, withstand that from men, but also having a more understanding to those who are going through it because I know what it's
Mm.
like. And I think, going back to the fact that you're focusing, especially for women with sexual trauma, that is such a difficult place for a woman to be. Because the
Mhm.
same, right? Because I'm on the board and I volunteer with the Girls Rock Sacramento here in Sacramento, California. And I offer the workshop, the self defense workshop. And a
Yes.
large portion of it is a safe space for any of these young girls. Usually it's the teens that I take it to this. Like the younger ones, we don't discuss this part. I discuss more of stranger danger still and,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, keeping it to date, right? Because that's the 7 to 11-year olds. But when you get to the 12 to 17-year olds, and the
Mm.
majority of the age is 14, and then it's a safe space and they'll share. And it's so often that they're having to endure sexual advancement
Advances.
and the grooming that happens
Yeah.
when they tell
It happens
when
even
boys
younger
are
than
like,
that.
oh, you know, either like, not that you want it, but don't overreact. It's not that bad. The grooming cycle because young ones are taught to be polite over being safe, and I want to flip that and teach them to be safe over being polite because it's so
Mm.
hard to prove. You know this, right? From
Mhm.
your criminal background, criminal justice background, it is hard for women to prove rape and assault by the law,
Mm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Unless you've got physical, like, bruising or break, and then you have to prove that that person actually did it.
Yeah.
If witnesses don't come forward, if they feel threatened, if they feel like they're not safe anywhere they go. So your work is so cut out for you for that.
Mm.
I mean, that's
I mean,
quite the thing to take on
you use the word safe
over being polite.
several times. Yeah. Well, safe over being polite, yes, but like safety is what is like number one. Like that's the first thing that gets taken away, your autonomy and your safety over your body, right? And
Yeah.
so when we talk about safety, it's about like allowing everybody a chance to exist, a chance to be, a chance to feel peaceful, a chance to feel safe, right?
Yeah.
And like it is harder. So what I want to say, like I have a daughter, so I have a 3-year-old daughter, and all of her friends are dudes at this point because all of my friends who had kids, they're all boys.
Okay.
And the thing is like I watch, it's kind of hard, it's kind of this weird experience of like watching her play in innocence with other kids her age that are boys and seeing just the difference in energy. Like boys are, I don't want to name it like this, but like I observe boys to have lots of energy running around, you know, they're touching things. They have a different handle of their bodies at 3 years old than girls do,
Completely.
right? And so when they're kind of roughhousing there, I know in my heart that they're not doing it to be violent or to take her space. They're doing it because they don't know better. But then how do
And the
you teach?
testosterone is raging within them.
Yeah, and you how but how do you teach a little girl, right? When somebody's taking your toy, how do you teach her to stand up for herself, right?
Right.
So I physically I look at it. I'm still learning, right? Like, do I address the parent? Do I address the child? Do I address my child? It's kind of like you have to. Everyone has to address it. Like somebody has to teach the boy that you no, you don't just go touching and stealing things.
Right
And
there.
then somebody
Right
has
there.
to teach, yeah, and then somebody has to teach the girl, no, you have to say something. Like I was at a point where I was like, no, you got to hit him back. Like I just straight told my daughter, somebody hits you, hit him back. But does she do that? No, because she knows it's not right to hurt people. Her brain isn't at a level where she knows I have to fight back. But I tell
Right.
her you can clap in their face, which is really funny because she's just like, this is what you do, you know, and at least she knows that there's a boundary there, right? This clap is
Is a
between me and
boundary.
you, and this
Yeah.
is my boundary. And so at least that's what I'm teaching her, right? And you know, other things that I teach her for me to feel safe is like I definitely teach her body parts, right? You know,
Right.
this is when we talk about for kids, like talk about consent is like teach them their body parts, and that I do teach her that nobody touches that except for mommy or you if we're cleaning, right? And so then she knows, well, at least hopefully that because you don't know how many times I've heard like little girls don't know because nobody told them that it's not safe for other people to touch you, right? That's not a
Right.
message we actually put out there. And that goes for everybody. Like going back to like talking about community and the Asian Pacific Islander Native Hawaiian communities, like we have to say, no, it's not right for you to light our elders on fire. No, it's not right for you to go attack our elders or attack, you know. And some with the workshops I do with students, I notice that they need to be reminded it's okay for them to also stand up for their elders. It's okay for you to step in, right? You don't have to just be a bystander. And how do you do that? How do you do that? So how do you do that is one we have to clear. Like when I do workshops, I've noticed what's been really helpful is when you said it to allow people to talk, but also to release. Because if you're holding on, just imagine like a girl who's been sexually assaulted going into a martial arts workshop or a self-defense workshop where she then has to fight, but she's never fought before. And
Yes.
she's
I
holding
I
on
deal with that
to,
all the time.
right? And she's holding on to all this fear from like the last time she felt violence. And now you're asking her to be violent. So one thing I do is I have like a circle where people can kind of share what have you experienced, what are you going through, why are you here, what are you here to learn, so that they have that intention to move forward. And then I did this exercise where that one of my spiritual teachers taught me, where we released all the energy. I had them lay down and we took a lot of deep breaths and we had them release it, right? Release it to the floor, release it to the ground. And then I felt the shift after that. They all stood up, and then I had them change seats. I like to do changing seats because it rewires your brain, so you're not sitting in the same place every time. You can see
Oh,
things
that's a good one.
differently. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I had them move, and then they just opened up, and it was like, yeah, like I didn't realize I was holding all this stuff, and then they were ready to like get physical and to start moving their bodies differently, and I think that's what we actually need is a shift in the mindset of like we're not being violent, we're protecting, right? We're protecting. We're not on the offense, we're on the defense. We just want everybody to feel safe. Um,
It sounds
yeah,
like you're doing a lot of deconstructing with them. It's when you go through the motions, and if it's spent months and even years, basically in survival mode without even realizing that's what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
And when you give them a space to address these things head on, I wouldn't be surprised if you have people crying in your workshops because,
Hmm.
as a therapist, especially because they're releasing something they've been holding on to for so long as a safety net
Yeah.
and out of survival.
Yeah.
And to know that their voice is being heard and that their concerns matter because
Hmm.
it goes back to what I was discussing earlier when we how with the Roe versus Wade thing happening and with abortion, it's like the whole focus around women being trained and ingrained in our minds, at least not our generation, I guess, but
Mm-mm.
to feel embarrassment and a guilt, right? Never ever including the man in the equation for that. I saw something that was going around that said, because people will say, well, what about in cases of, rape or
Um,
incest? And, basically just reinforces the idea that a woman has only can have the right to her body after it's been violated versus just having the right at all. And
mhm.
it just keeps reinforcing that violence towards women will happen because they're just boys and they're just men and that's what we expect. No, we need to stop it because when you brought up that where you're teaching your daughter around your friends' sons, and my first thought was, what are they doing with their sons that this is happening? Are they
Well,
not
it's
teaching?
the thing, like we nobody teaches you as what, like nobody teaches you how to teach consent to your daughter, but nobody also sits down and says this is how we need to raise our sons.
Yes.
Like this is, it's not just a male female, it's like a, it's not a gendered thing. It's just this is the energy we need to have, is
Yes.
that women's bodies and your bodies as men will all be respected. Like I don't know. I don't. It's such a deep thing. It's just
It's so
like
deep. And I feel you on this
nobody.
because you and I are doing the work of after things happen, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to pick somewhere to focus. We can't sit there and try to change the whole world in every aspect of it. So you and I will focus on, all right, we will empower those that have either been and the young ones to keep from going. Someone else has got to put on the work and work with the young men because they too deal with trauma. They too deal with being sexually assaulted, but they're also in their right ingrained to suck it up, deal with it. You're a man.
Yes.
All of these,
Yes.
they have to be broken down. These generational curses have got to be men. It's
I
okay for men to cry. Men can put boundaries too.
I
If
will
once they
say
can
though
respect themselves, they can then respect everybody, including women.
that I will say that this generation. I say this generation as if I'm some like older elder or something, but
Well,
like
we have children, right? So,
there are more and more people who are seeing, because they're seeing the future because they recognize what happened to them, right?
yeah.
So they see, and there's a lot of churning going on in this in the universe with the energies and the change and stuff. I really feel like you're right. Like it I feel like women have done a lot of healing, emotional labor for the last couple centuries to like propel us forward. That it's time. It really is time for men to kind of step up
Yeah.
and embrace like their femininity, their feminine divine, and their emotional sides, because that's what's
Yes.
gonna save us, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
women who are killing women; it's men doing that. And so, if y'all can heal yourselves, we will be happy. Y'all will be happy, and we really want. I I so going back to mental health awareness month, I'm not only like a therapist, I'm also somebody who's been through the system, and I also have family members who needed to go through the system, and I'm doing this for them too, because so part of my practice is also doing like ancestor work. And as you know, I talked about being like a Bob Island in training. As a healer myself, I'm like going through this process of healing all the traumas that my ancestors also held on to, because they were a
Mm,
step closer to the actual violence.
yeah.
Yes, there's lots of violence here, but like our ancestors, one or two generations ago, they were literally like on the islands when the military were coming and colonizing and spreading all their disease and whatnot,
Yeah.
right? So they were actually there. We're here, like learning, remembering it through them. But they didn't have a mental health system, right? They didn't have
No,
meds. They didn't have therapy. Well, they had their
no.
babaylan, their
They
helots.
had nobody on their
Um,
side.
they did and they didn't, right? They
Yeah.
did because that's why we're still alive. People like you and I are still alive
Right.
because we are carrying on that tradition. It just looks differently. And that's like another thing too is part of the anxiety that we feel as Asian Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians, folks who are in the diaspora is that we are it's almost as if our sense of self is getting attacked through all of these like politics, law, the violence, right? It's our sense of self because white supremacy is not our friend. So every
No.
morning we have to wake up in America and see white supremacy living in the move in like the media and our workspace and the way we go to go to I just had this long conversation about like the medical industrial complex and how it literally is just like violence against women too. That's a difference. That's a whole different arm. But like having to wake up in this world is anxiety provoking itself. But if we can remember the strengths that our ancestors gave us and passed down to us that live in us because we're still alive, it could give us that sense of calm, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why praying and meditating, things where you're breathing and reconnecting with your body, things that people don't want to do. Honestly, I tell my clients to breathe and to hold themselves and to hug themselves and to slow down. But it's so hard because the colonization is so deep. And so when people say take a deep breath, literally people should just go for 5 minutes and take as many deep breaths as they can because it physiologically helps your body be healthier, right?
Absolutely.
Your breath is what reminds you that you're alive. But if you're frozen or you're running, you're always in flight or fright. Your breathing is not regulated.
Well, it's that, and
And
it's the whole taking a moment to feel present, because that's
hmm
something we don't really do anymore. I'm
yeah,
guilty of it. I'm very aware of it. Being
hmm
present when we eat, being present when we just sit, being present when we're out and about. We're always distracted, headphones in, facing our phones, facing the
hmm
laptop,
hmm
whatever it is that's going on, constantly,
surrounded
constantly,
by
constantly.
technology. Hmm
And so, like you said, the deep breaths, it's about just, I'll remind people, have you had water today? How much water have
hmm
you had today? Have
hmm
you smiled? Have you relaxed your face, closed your eyes, and then just smiled a little bit?
hmm
You know? And if you can't just smile out of nowhere, think of something that makes you, like, pull the old Peter Pan thing and where's your happy place?
It sounds really easy. It sounds
It's so
really
not
easy,
easy.
but it's not
It's
easy.
not.
I and that's why like I tell so right now I'm in the middle of a 3-day detox where I set up my prayer room and I'm sleeping here. I'm by myself. I'm kind of like, this is kind of a break from that, but I'm like detoxing from everything. I was taking a nap right before I got on here with you. I'm going to take a nap right after I get off with you. And like when I said I'm healing from the trauma, like, I don't know anyone else who would schedule that, but that's what we severely need. Like, how often do we schedule 2 to 3 days where we're laying in bed and we're not doing anything? It feels really hard because of the guilt we have. It feels really hard because our bodies are not used to it. But
Yeah.
that's really how we need to start taking care of ourselves. It sounds so easy and it sounds so simple, but like when you reevaluate your life at how many, if you put like a clock and you are like, this is actually how many hours I'm laying down breathing, you'll find that it's very little. And that's really sad. And that's what causes a lot of anxiety and a lot of the mental health stuff that we see, like the disorders, it's like anxiety, major depression, is just because we are not able to get out of the cog of constantly producing and trying to be better and try to make
That
more
right
and
there.
try to fit in and trying to do this. And so in the last couple of months since I left community mental health, I realized that like we're not meant to do that as humans. We're not. We're meant to like chill and enjoy like we really are, but how often do we gift ourselves that? And so I think what I would love anybody to get out of this is that as a therapist, you could quote me like you need a day off. You need a day off where you're not doing anything for anybody else. And I know it's really hard, but you need it. You, Mickey, need it. You, whoever's listening, you need it. And I don't think there's anyone out there who wouldn't say, no, I don't need a day off. You
And you
do
can
need a
even
day
start
off.
small. If you can't do a whole day, right? Because already brains are spinning because you're right. We're constantly on the go like a phone with apps running in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't stop. If you can't do a whole day, start with 2 hours. I mean 2 solid hours of phone is
Mm-hmm.
on do not disturb and away from you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're either taking a walk, maybe if you live near a park or you're in open space, if you can be near water like the lake or the ocean, or if you can just pick a space like you have where you're at and create a
Yeah,
nice
I am.
calming area, right? You can spritz some like lavender, or you can put on if you want music, and
Yeah,
it's about being present and being with yourself. And I think that's a scary, this as a therapist, that's a
it,
scary place for those
it
who are
is a
still
scary place.
healing.
Yes. And
Hard to be with.
before they can even get to that spot is the even scarier space before peace is rage.
Mm,
So whatever, like when somebody is assaulted, when somebody experiences a threat to their life or to like their safety, I think rage is a natural feeling. Like, if you're fucking with me, you're gonna fucking kill me. Like, that's a natural reaction to somebody trying to hurt you, right?
yeah.
But because we're not all built that way to fight, that rage gets stuck inside of us. And that's also a leading cause of why some people experience depression, because that rage from whatever happened to you, you were never able to express it, or people didn't give you a space to, because again, going back to violence upon the body is a real big like impact, has a real big scary impact. It's not natural actually, right? It's a cognitive dissonance. Human beings are not supposed to be this violent towards each other, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important right now. And this is something my spiritual teachers are teaching me. Like, if you feel called to heal, do the healing now. Like, there is a expedition of healing happening. So if y'all catch on that wave, go take a nap, and
I'm telling
and
you,
like the
I'm
universe
feeling
will
it.
be like,
I've been feeling the calling because I'm getting back into Reiki healing, not
mm,
just for myself, but first for myself because I need it. I
yes,
did that little video last night. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm cutting back on the hours that I'm working, and I'm getting rest, and I'm going to drink more water, and I'm going to stretch because I don't
yes,
stretching. That's the other thing I recommend to folks. Just take 5 minutes a day and start and stretch. There are
yeah,
videos that'll teach you how if you don't know how to properly stretch, because that increases your oxygen levels, it increases blood flow, it
hmm,
increases happiness and endorphins, right?
yeah,
And then I even picked up a tarot card box. Like my daughter and I were downtown a couple weeks ago, and I discovered Capital Books on K finally, and it just looked. It spoke to me. I haven't opened it yet. I'm waiting, but it's like I just feel like I need to start self healing myself because the world is needing it, and I
yeah,
am a healer by nature. I'm a
yeah.
warrior healer by nature, but I have
Mm,
to I have
practice
to
what
put
you
my own
preach.
mask on first before I can put it
Hmm.
on someone else.
Yeah,
And
and
so, yeah,
it's really hard. I'm just I don't want to stress that it's easy, because sometimes I feel like people think, oh yeah, I'll just go meditate and it's all over. But no, it's
it's a
like
process.
it's a process, and you're not
Yeah.
healing from one thing. Most of the time, we're healing from multiple things. So I feel like I've addressed the things that have happened to me as far as like my own sexual assault. I'm in the process of healing from motherhood, right? From giving birth, which I think don't a lot of people don't think about that as well, as like giving birth to a child is actually like a traumatic experience, because and now the day and age, a lot of the women I work with have had C-sections. They've
Yeah.
gone through a birth. Their birth story includes not being able to advocate for their own needs or their baby's needs, because the medical industrial complex is so strong. Again, very, very, very deeply rooted
Right.
in like white supremacy and colonization. Um, and so, like, that's why I said, when you were talking about abortion rights, like, I wonder if people know that before all of this Western medicine is that women had the choice to take certain herbs, do certain exercises, eat certain foods so that they didn't get pregnant, right? So that none of this would happen. Like, none of this
Well,
unsafe
I did not
portions.
know that. Okay.
Yeah, we all have different practices, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. On Mother's Day, I got my period, and I was drinking, and I was eating all this red meat, and I was not paying attention, and then I was pissed at the end of the day, and so that's part of what I'm retreating is like, I told my partner, when men and women are not supposed to be like talking or like we're supposed to be separate. And I always thought that was like a mean, like why do women have to be separate? But now I realize, oh, so I could have some peace and fucking quiet. It's so nice to like not have to hear anybody talking, and just be with myself and really do some of that deep breathing work and that some deep healing work that I
And
think
along
we
with
all
that
need.
comes forgiveness in yourself. You
Mhm.
mentioned how it's not an easy process and it takes time. And be patient with yourself.
Yeah,
It's not like you're working towards a grade or a trophy or anything. You're healing yourself, and everyone has their own how long ever it will take to happen. It could take maybe your whole life in sections, and that's okay too.
it is okay. However, I do want to say that some people choose to stay in their unhealed selves, which is problematic because they stay unhealed and then go and harm other people, right? So that's what happens when you don't. I don't know how to explain it
Hurt
because
people
there's
hurt
such a
people.
no. It's about like resistance, right?
Okay.
Like it's the resistance I feel when I say like I encourage my clients to take time off because I can see it. Like I can see burnout because I know how it feels in my body. I can see it in them, and I'm always going to advocate for clients to take a day off. Right? I'm always going to advocate for that. But the resistance to it is like you're choosing to not take a day off so that you can work because you feel anxious about not working. But then that
Right.
just leads to more anxiety, more anxiety, more anxiety. Whereas if you just took the day off, that anxiety will lessen so much that you'll be able to clear out the anxiety to actually do the job to be like at your utmost. That's the point of taking a day off is so that you can do it's not to do less work, it's to have less stress about that work, especially if it's work that you love to do, right? And that's
Right.
one thing I didn't get taught as a mental health professional is how to manage my own stress when I'm dealing with high stress
Oh
situations,
man.
which is why I also believe that abolition is not healthy because all the violence that police officers are exposed to is not going to make them peace officers. They're going to be more violent.
I
So we didn't.
That makes
Yeah,
sense. That makes
yeah,
perfect sense.
yes.
It's a vicious cycle that it's going to take if there is a even work in restructuring that would take a long time. There's so much tied into that which you know firsthand.
Yeah. I don't think that that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna pan out the way prison corporate people think it is. But yeah, I do encourage. Yeah, like even for one of my clients, I encouraged her like even if it's just 3 deep breaths right before you take your morning coffee. Like everybody already has a ritual that they do to make them feel good. And so right before you do that, maybe just take those 3 deep breaths, so you could really be present in that thing that you enjoy doing. Like for me, I smoke weed, smoke a lot of weed. And in that takes deep breaths, but I also kind of like have a ritual around it. Like this is what I do in the morning to wake up my brain. This is how I wake up this is how I wake up my brain. This is how I get my body ready before then I go do my yoga and meditate. And I'm really, really trying to set like new pathways in my brain because I don't want to continue like these harmful behaviors that I've had. And I think that's, when we breathe and when we take the time out to breathe into ourselves, we get to notice what we really want to do and how we really want to show up in the world versus like this tense, irritable, like scared person. We can feel good in our bodies, right? And
Yeah,
I think the breath is the way to do that.
that makes sense. I mean, unlearning habits that no longer serve you or maybe never did to begin with, and you just have to
Mm-hmm.
learn how to let those go and developing new habits.
Mm-hmm.
That's not easy for people. Some people could jump right into it. Others, it's like, mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's different. I mean, and you've said some really you've given really good advice on this. I appreciate that. I've learned some things listening to you talk. In fact, when you had posted, in fact, and for those that are either listening now or when you catch us later, because you do classes, right? Talk a little bit on that. You have
So
workshops that you do, don't you?
yeah, lately I just do workshops for people who ask me. I don't really promote it out there. So I guess I'm getting called by spirit for whoever wants to find me. But most of the workshops I do are centered around talking about trauma, about how it impacts our bodies, how it might show up for you. Because yes, everybody is different. We all have our different reactions to things. And then trying to like just like I'm talking about here, trying to encourage people to really take the time to breathe and rest. It's a really popular trend right now to post things about resting, but how much of us who post resting are actually resting,
Right.
right? Because I found in the last 2 months, I was all over my social media and it was burning me the fuck out. I was having fun. I was feel like I was helping people, but I was tired, and I didn't have space for anything else. I was upset. I didn't have space for my child or my partner, and now I'm trying to gain that back because that's the other thing is like we have to in that time we breathe. It's a good idea to like envision what we really want our life to be like. Like you probably don't want your life to be managing four different departments, getting up really early,
Oh
not
gosh,
having
no.
good sleep, right?
Mm-mm.
And so part of another thing that I teach, part of the workshop, right, is when we talk about being prepared, because it's a community safety workshop. We talk about being prepared, right? Surveying your surroundings, knowing your exits. That that we can do too, right? When we breathe, we can say, okay, I don't want to feel this anxiety anymore. I would rather feel joy. And then in your mind, you'll imagine what brings you joy. It'll come up for you automatically because you're the only one who knows what joy is going to feel like. I can't tell you that joy is what your joy
Right.
is, but it'll come up for you if you take the time. And then I believe in the universe, I believe in energies, and I believe that the universe wants to give you what you want. But we spend so much time filling it with different departments to manage, different projects to do, different posts to post, that the universe can't get it in with us. It's like, where can I put her joy? Where can I put it? And so when you stop and breathe, when you take the time to rest, it's like, oh, there it is, right here in her heart, in her brain. Let me give her some of that. I felt that right before I took a nap, before I came on with you. I
Yeah.
told myself I need to rest so I have energy to do what I need to do for the rest of the day. I actually take virtual naps
Good for
every day
you.
now. I have to because
You know,
it's,
good for you
yeah.
to do that on purpose because many of us, and I know I'm speaking for a lot of us, usually when we rest, it's because the body's making us by either we're
Hmm.
so exhausted that it's nap time or we're sick and run down.
Yeah.
And that's when it's too little too late. You
Yeah.
want to be in a space where like you are, where you're scheduling time for yourself and you're blocking it out like in your schedule and you're like I can't do it in this time because this time is me time and I can be a better me to be a better we, right?
Hmm.
Working on being a
Exactly.
better me so we can be a better we.
Yeah.
And I realized that. I'm like, I need to do that for myself before it just gets because like I said, I'm going down south in about 3 weeks and I know
Hmm.
what it takes to work that
Yeah.
that event. And I'm in nowhere the shape or the mindset that I've been since COVID. In fact, you've even touched on that because I was going to ask, but you already touched on that. How even more of the impact of anxiety and depression has happened because of COVID.
Because COVID. Yeah.
I found that I need to stretch more because as a martial artist, I can't kick like I used to kick. It actually hurts.
Mm.
That's embarrassing.
So
So that's
here's
why
it.
I was like, I need to stretch.
Hmm.
I need to, when I go for walks and the yoga, I know yoga poses. I'm doing those again. I'm trying to do just the basics with the workouts to get the warm up so my body gets reconditioned back to what it remembers. The body remembers.
The body remembers
Yeah.
absolutely.
But when
I
you're
just,
when you're on hold, I've been on hold for 2 years. That's a lot can happen, a lot can break
hmm.
down, a lot can hurt, a lot can uh and I remember what it was like to feel better. And I just
Hmm.
want to feel better so I can do
Hmm.
and be better, right? And it
Hmm.
helps with anxiety and it helps with depression because
Yeah.
I was in those spaces too.
Hmm.
I was in a deep dark place there for a minute, and COVID didn't help. So I feel you on that one. And I'm gonna be like you. I'm gonna start scheduling my time to myself. I'll find the days when I can do it and the times in the day, and I'm just gonna block those out.
I
I
have
might
to do
even
that.
find a place to go do it, not even do it here, like in my home, but somewhere.
Yes. I mean, I recommend, if I mean, I want to just acknowledge that some of the things I'm saying are coming from a privileged space because I have a house, I have access to food, right? I have a partner who's supporting me, I have family who supports me with my childcare. Not everybody has that. So it's
That's true.
sometimes I have to acknowledge that, like, yeah, not everybody has a chance to retreat to their own prayer room next to the ocean with their sunlight, right? I have that blessing, but I worked. I don't want to say that I deserve it, but like I manifested it because I know I needed it. Like I just started 5 businesses and quit 17 jobs and whatever. Like I needed this space to do the work that I need to do. I'm not done working yet. And so it's not just like I need space to heal from what I've been through. It's space I need to heal because I have more shit I need to do. Like I need more, I have to do more, I want to do more workshops, right? And so like we also have to think of what our capacities. You, right, as what you do, you're a voice to people. People hear you. They heal through their words. You give people like you give people like you see them, right? You give them a place. And so for you, you're reaching out to a lot of people. That's a lot of energy you're putting out. And so
Yeah.
you absolutely need time to so that the next day you can reach 100,000 more
I
people,
do.
right?
You're right. I mean, I reached a
Hmm.
point. It's funny that you brought that up. Not to go off on tangent because we're going to close this off soon. But
Yeah.
as a Reiki healer, even before I became one, I realized I had this insane amount of intense energy that would just go out. My aura, it would be described as like 3 stories high and this just out. But between with COVID happening and other things that happened in my life, it was like one crisis after the other. You get thrown enough bricks at your body and your
Yeah.
soul, it breaks you down. And I realized I don't have the capacity or the strength in my aura to hold off like I used to. And as you get older, I'm in my 50s now, you can't hold that shit up forever.
No.
So you learn to recalibrate and go, all right, I need to change habits. I need to change
Mhm.
who I'm around,
Mhm.
what I'm allowing in
Mhm.
my space. I need to learn boundaries
Exactly.
because my energy was so strong. I didn't bother with boundaries.
Yeah.
Didn't do well in the love department, but that's a whole nother discussion. So now, the boundaries are there to protect my aura, to protect my energy, to protect my sanity, so
Mhm.
that I still can do the work, like you said. And thank you for that, by the way. But I can still do the work. I'm just learning how different now
Yeah.
to
How,
give it, right?
when to put the gas, when to put the brake, when to put it in
Because I'm
neutral
usually
so
all
that you can
gas, no
still roll
brakes.
it.
I'm usually all gas,
Exactly.
no brakes.
That's
I'm
good
learning
that you
to
see
apply
that.
brakes.
It's good that you see that. And you okay, because you acknowledge your age and where you are in your life journey, like you also are transitioning to a place where you don't have to fight anymore. Like you can
Right.
pass it on to me. Like I'm the next generation who has to
Yeah,
fight. Like
it's
you
facts.
can rest.
I'm the elder now. It's so
You are
weird. It's so weird to say that out loud.
I'm telling you that wave, like
Yeah.
these are what my teachers are telling you. The wave is happening. Jump
Yeah.
on the fucking grab your surfboard, grab your
And
boogie
go.
board on this wave of healing and go into the ocean and go because
Oh, completely.
you're being we're all being propelled right now. Like
Yeah, I feel
you
it
no
too.
longer have to fight. And that's why these workshops we do that we want to do with the youth, like what I do with the students, is because it's their turn now. They have the energy to do it. They have the technology.
Yes.
They are the ones who are like, they're the ones who are like gonna, I don't know, they're gonna do it all for us. They're gonna do for us what we couldn't do for them. And we have
Yeah.
to rest now so that when they
Well,
have children, we can
and
be
it's
their Lolo and Lolas to take care of their children.
well, it's so weird to say that out loud too, because being Filipino, I mean, I'm half Filipino, but still, I mean, we live to be like 120. So even though I say I'm in my 50s, I'm really not old. So that's why it feels
No.
weird to wear the
Yeah.
elder cap, but I'm at a level to where it's like I'm in that space where I can delegate and then advise.
Yes.
I'm in the
That's
delegate
what
and
you're doing,
advise
right?
stage now.
Yeah, you're like you're helping run all these events for people.
Yeah,
You're not the one who's at the front line anymore.
right.
You're teaching people how to have the events. Like I wouldn't be doing workshops had I not gone to something with you, right? Had I not met you, right? I would just be selling stun guns. I would not be doing
Really?
community things. I feel like I wouldn't be doing that had it not been for
Huh.
you. Because
Aw.
you know how we spark each other, right?
Yeah, we do.
So like
We were
I've been
meant we
asking
were meant to
you,
connect.
right? I've been asking you since you started wanting to be an ambassador. I was like, we should do workshops.
We
And
will.
so like it's coming in and people are seeing that. Like I just got approached at my last pop up to do some community workshops, and um, people are wanting it, right? And they're wanting it from people who look like you and I,
Yes,
not from like ex law enforcement or ex military.
correct. And
Yeah.
I feel that too. And the thing is you and I were others are fortunate that you and I are answering the call because not everybody feels comfortable being in that role,
Yeah.
right? Of putting ourselves out there and being the strength for others and helping them find their strength.
Which is
Not
why we
every
need our rest.
I know
That's my
facts, but it's like
validation.
not everyone feels comfortable. I mean, and then we'll wrap this up. I know we're just going off on
Yeah.
tangents, but I remember
No, it's
watching a
all related.
program.
Yeah.
It's like a real. It was a real. It's a reality program. I mean, not without giving the whole story, but I watched another season of the Real World because that was my thing when it first came out. I was in my 20s, right?
Hmm.
So now we're seeing them 20 years later. It's their reunion home. They call it Home World Tour. But I found it interesting watching them now because they're older and in two spaces you have two in the same space of like the Black Lives Matter movement. You had two folks from the Black community. One felt a calling to do the right thing and the other one was like, no, just because I'm Black doesn't mean I have to. And that's where it's at. So like for you and I in
Hmm.
the Pacific Islander Asian space, not everyone's going to feel that call to be, that representative, but you and I, we answer that call.
Hmm.
And so I feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And you know what? I want to do it
Hmm.
it being a call. I live to serve like that and to see others react like you said when they want it. And then there's that connection and then there's that community and that love and that trust that gets built and that bond.
Hmm.
And I live for that. So trust, we're going to do it. This year's, it's going to be good. You're not going to be a force to be reckoned with, I promise.
But you need to take like you need to take like a 4 day, 5 day retreat to the ocean where you're just like sitting in
Well, I
front of
don't
the
have 4 or
ocean.
5 days right now,
two
but I
days.
will. I don't even have two. That's the sad part. But I'm gonna.
No,
That's
no, you
I
have 2 days.
don't. This is
You
why I
have
said if
it's not
I
in your
don't.
calendar right now, but
I
sometime in your
promise
life
you.
you're gonna
Off.
have those
You know
two
what? Off
days.
camera, I'm gonna tell you. I don't have 2 days now, but I'm working towards. I am gonna work towards where I have a week. I'm working
Hmm.
towards it. It's a
Okay.
process. It'll happen.
Yeah.
I have to do it. I have to do it like in hours at a time at the moment. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
it'll come. I will. Because I have to before I can't do it anymore. Like I can't I don't want to get to a space where I no longer care.
The reason, so when I said that I had experience was August 2019. I ended up in the ER from extreme exhaustion. I had passed out in my bathroom, got up anyways, went to work, had major migraines, was dizzy, and I ended up going into the hospital. I just like I don't know what's going on, and so I went to the hospital, and they said you're fucking tired. My doctor, my not my OB, but my physician at the time was like, I am writing you a prescription for rest.
Oh
She
my.
literally said that. It was the first time I ever heard that, and so that's why I promote it, because the more I say it, the more people are going to believe it, because it wasn't until my doctor said you need to slow the fuck down. Like you are exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And for her to validate that for me was like, okay. But it wasn't until like 2 3 years later that I'm now taking the time to listen to what she was saying. So I get
Yeah.
it. It does take time, but I'm gonna
But I am
like I
doing
said
it.
earlier.
I'm not even making excuses. It's like it isn't a situation that I can just stop because
Yeah.
I'm spinning so many plates. If I literally stopped, the plates would fall. So I
And
have to
then
balance it until I can take that time. But I'm owed it. So
yeah,
it'll happen. And I'm
yeah.
grateful for it. I'm doing all the little steps I need to. And I have folks like you to guide me and to remind me. So,
I would love to. I've been talking to people about doing like a retreat. I had a couple of people ask me to do a retreat, and it's like anything I can do to get people by the ocean, eating some good food, and just laughing.
yeah,
I
I'm
think it's a
down. I mean,
yes.
as long as it's when I can do it, I'm down. I could definitely use that. I mean, I need to get back to Hawaii. I was all jealous when you was there. I was like,
I was working there though.
I know you were, but I still was jealous that you were there. So
Yeah,
there. I was the
there's a
last time
lot
I
of
was in
things.
Hawaii, I was in Maui and I did work, but this is a different concept of working and being in Hawaii. Like,
Yeah,
especially for
yeah,
you and I, we're family being from there and raised, the Aina and raised with all of that and the culture. Like we understand the importance of it,
yeah,
unlike colonization, right? So, which is a whole other conversation. But
yeah.
anyways,
But
okay,
yeah,
so in wrapping this up, what is one final thing you would like to put out there for folks? And also, I put it in the link, but here I'll put it up one more time. And for those that want to reach out, do
mm.
you have like any advice you want to finish off with
um, so
for
I
our
am.
listeners?
Yeah, so you can visit this link. My coaching services are actually at www.healkeona.com. I specialize in working with Asian American Pacific Islanders, um, with mothers, with daughters, for anyone who's healing from sexual assault. I also offer therapeutic coaching, which my therapy caseload is full right now. But with therapeutic coaching, it's it's more of a decolonized therapy where our relationship is different. So with therapy, I'm very limited in what I can say and what I can do because of licensing boards and that medical industrial
Yeah.
complex. But with therapeutic coaching, I can bring more of myself and more of my spiritual teachings into it, to bring it to a different level, right? And part of my coaching is, yes, you have to rest. And so what I love working with women is how to build that into their life, where whether it's organizing like a 3-day trip somewhere you've never been and walking you through all the anxiety of that, or even just setting a boundary with your family saying, hey, I need to go to sleep at 8 o'clock every night, right? Something as simple as that. But the goal of the coaching is to help regulate the nervous system so that people can like make room for other things and still be able to do all the work that they need to do. I'm scheduled. You can schedule those online. We're going to be doing we're going to do one more pop up, and I'm going to be taking a break for the summer because I'm building
Good for
in
you.
rest, right? And yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to take a break from that too, but there are always to stay connected. If you want to find me, then you'll come find me, right?
I'm gonna say, well, you have that there if people want it, because you can also research the post you put up before to get to know you better as well. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you, Lauren, so much. I really enjoyed this. I've learned a
Oh,
lot.
can I say two more things? I'm so
Yeah, yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Go for it.
So this month, all I scheduled for myself were talks like these, like one with Myki. And so if you want to connect with me again, I'll be on Instagram Live next week with a woman named Gillespie. And she is a Reiki healer as well. She works specifically with women of color who are sexual assault survivors. After that, I'm going to be doing an IG Live with a woman named Rochelle, who is a spirit communicator and educator. I actually just did a workshop with her last night, where she helps people in their spiritual development, because sometimes that can be scary when we are able to communicate with spirits. And I'm going to kind of tie that in with psychosis and schizophrenia, because sometimes that can look the same. And then
Ooh,
my
I'm
last
gonna be
workshop,
on those with you. I'm gonna be on those. Hopefully, I can, depending on what time you do
yeah.
them.
And then the last one I'm going to be doing at the end of the month is for the Filipino community. So I'm going to be doing a talk around the four. There's four pillars, but I'm going to present five pillars of pre-colonial Philippine society. And what I'd like to present is how we can kind of like um, use those pillars to help us navigate who we are in these times. So that's
Oh, I love it.
specifically for the Filipino community, so that we can have a sense of self and a sense of community in these times where we desperately need it.
I need that. That's why my show is called The Bad Filipino, because I'm just bad at being Filipino. So
Which
hop
is
on.
great.
I'm gonna hop on those IG so I can learn how to be a better Filipino. Well, now I can say thank you so much. This has been very valuable. I always
Yeah,
appreciate you as always. Please, everyone, follow. I put
absolutely.
in the links. It'll be up later. And like I always tell you, every day that you wake up, you determine how your day will go. This is Myki Angeline signing off, saying thank you and have a great day.